What if I told you that the biggest automotive company in America is collapsing right now, and that the fallout could change how you buy cars forever? Imagine walking into a dealership and finding a brand new Cadillac Escalade for $12,000. Not a typo, $12,000 for a luxury SUV that cost nearly 90 grand just a year ago. It sounds impossible, right? But it's happened, and it's only the beginning. Enterprise, the global rental giant that owns more cars than any other company on the planet, is quietly liquidating its fleet at prices that make no sense. $80,000 BMWs for 15 grand. Tesla Model Ys for under 9. Mercedes, Audi, Lexus vehicles once reserved for the rich, now selling for less than a used Honda Civic. The company that built its empire on airport rentals and business travel is drowning in nearly $50 billion of debt, and it's running out of time. Behind closed doors, enterprise executives are scrambling to raise cash any way they can. Leaked financial reports show they're bleeding millions every week just to service the loans tied to their 2 million vehicle fleet. Business travel hasn't recovered since the pandemic. Luxury rentals have vanished, and now enterprise is sitting on billions in cars it can't afford to keep. So they're doing something no one thought possible: selling them for whatever they can get, fast. People across the country are walking into enterprise liquidation centers and finding deals that defy logic. A Tesla for less than 10 grand. A BMW 7 Series for the price of a used Toyota. A Mercedes GLS that once cost $85,000 now listed for $11,000. Some buyers are flipping these cars the same day for double or triple what they paid. Others are keeping them, driving luxury vehicles for pennies on the dollar. For anyone paying attention, this isn't a sale. It's a once-in-a-generation event, but the story goes deeper than cheap cars. It's the story of how a single miscalculation, betting on the wrong kind of recovery, brought a corporate giant to its knees. Enterprise spent billions expanding its luxury and electric vehicle fleets, believing travelers would return to premium rentals. They didn't. Instead, they rented economy cars, used ride shares, or stopped traveling altogether, and that left Enterprise holding the bag on more than 2 million vehicles it can't rent, can't store, and can barely finance. What you're seeing now, the Escalades for $12,000, the BMWs for $15,000, isn't marketing, it's survival. Enterprise isn't trying to make money anymore, it's trying to stay alive. The liquidation wave has already started in major cities, and insiders say it could spread nationwide before the end of the year. When it does, the rules of car ownership will be rewritten. You'll see luxury vehicles priced below economy models. You'll see electric cars cheaper than scooters, and for a short window of time, ordinary people will be able to buy the kinds of vehicles they only dreamed about. The story begins with a headline that sounds too shocking to be true. Enterprise, America's largest car rental company, is on the verge of collapse. For decades, Enterprise Holdings has been a symbol of stability in the automotive industry, a private, family-owned empire managing more than 2.3 million vehicles across the world. Their slogan, "We'll pick you up," became synonymous with reliability and trust. But in 2025, behind the polished image, cracks began to show. Insiders started leaking information suggesting the company was drowning in unprecedented debt, nearly $47 billion, and that its vast fleet of vehicles had turned from an asset into a liability. It wasn't just a downturn. It was a slow-motion implosion of a corporate giant that had dominated the roads for generations. The first signs appeared quietly. In early spring, car buyers in Texas, Arizona, and Florida began noticing something strange on Enterprise's used car sales website: luxury vehicles listed at prices that defied logic. A 2024 Cadillac Escalade Platinum, barely a year old, was marked down to $12,000. A BMW X7, once close to $100,000, appeared for $15,500. These listings vanished within hours, often purchased in cash by buyers who thought they had stumbled into a system glitch. But the same pattern repeated week after week. Dozens of vehicles appeared, disappeared, and reappeared in other states. It was no mistake. Enterprise was quietly offloading inventory at prices that had no precedent in the modern auto market. And the Dallas-based car enthusiast named Ryan Keller drove 3 hours to verify one of these listings, he found not a scam, but a surreal reality. The Enterprise sales lot was packed with pristine SUVs, sedans, and electric vehicles, all nearly new, all priced at what seemed like liquidation rates. It felt like stepping into an alternate economy, Keller said. I asked the sales manager if this was a special promotion, and he just smiled and said, "We need to move units fast." That single phrase, "move units fast," became the quiet slogan of Enterprise's unfolding crisis. According to leaked internal memos shared anonymously on automotive forums, Enterprise's cost structure had spiraled out of control after 2020. The pandemic crippled business travel, which historically represented 60% of their revenue. By 2024, analysts estimated that corporate rentals were still down by more than half, yet Enterprise had spent billions expanding its luxury and electric vehicle fleets, betting that travel would rebound to pre-pandemic levels. Instead, demand stayed low while interest rates soared, driving the company's financing costs to historic highs. Each month, Enterprise was reportedly paying over $400 million, 0 cents in floor plan interest, the financing costs tied to holding its massive fleet. With fewer rentals and falling resale values, those expenses became unsustainable. In an internal presentation leaked to Bloomberg Automotive, one executive described the company's financial state as a ticking clock with no reset button. By mid-2025, Enterprise faced the grim choice of either selling off vehicles at a loss or defaulting on its loans. They chose to sell. What followed looked less like an orderly liquidation and more like a fire sale. Employees were instructed to prioritize cash flow over profit. Cars that might have sold for $50,000, 0 cents, were listed for $10,000, 0 cents, often disappearing within minutes of being posted online. Buyers began driving across state lines to chase the deals. Some car dealerships started buying directly from Enterprise lots to resell at normal prices, effectively flipping vehicles for instant profit. A few state attorneys general even launched preliminary investigations, suspecting predatory pricing or hidden financing tactics, but no wrongdoing was found. The truth was simpler and more desperate. Enterprise wasn't trying to dominate the market anymore and was trying to survive another quarter. By late summer, rumors of bankruptcy spread through the automotive industry. Competitors like Hertz and Avis quietly started preparing for an influx of cheap used cars that could depress market prices across the board. Analysts from Morgan & Lowell projected that Enterprise's liquidation could cut national used car prices by as much as 15% if it continued at scale. The company publicly denied any financial distress, calling the rumors gross exaggerations. But insiders painted a different picture. Executive bonuses suspended, hiring freezes, and regional layoffs to the public. It all started with one shocking discovery: a $90,000 0-cent SUV selling for $12,000. But behind that headline was a far more complex story of corporate overreach, debt-fueled expansion, and a global shift in how people travel. The first cracks were visible, and soon the world would realize that the unthinkable was happening. The largest car rental company on Earth was running out of road. When the first reports of Enterprise's so-called liquidation pricing began circulating online, few believed they were real. Most assumed it was clickbait or a scam. After all, luxury cars don't just lose 80 or 90% of their value overnight. But by midsummer, dozens of verified buyers started posting photos and invoices, proving that the impossible was actually happening. A 2024 Cadillac Escalade Platinum, listed at $12,000, 0 cents with just 8,000 miles, sold in Dallas in less than an hour. A BMW X7 with a $98,000 0 cents MSRP appeared on Enterprise's Phoenix website for $15,200 0 cents, purchased within 20 minutes of being listed. The screenshots spread across Reddit, automotive forums, and TikTok, igniting a frenzy. People were driving across state lines, lining up before sunrise outside Enterprise car sales centers, hoping to catch a once-in-a-lifetime deal before the listings disappeared. At first glance, it looked like chaos, but insiders claimed it was a deliberate, controlled burn. Enterprise wasn't trying to profit, it was trying to raise cash as quickly as possible. Vehicles that sat on lots were costing the company millions each week in interest and depreciation. Selling fast, even at enormous losses, meant keeping the business alive another day. And so, one by one, Enterprise began clearing out its most valuable assets, its luxury and electric vehicle fleets. The numbers were staggering. The Mercedes GLS 450, originally priced near $85,000, 0 cents, was offered at $11,500, 0 cents in Nevada. A 2023 Audi Q8 with less than 10,000 miles sold for $13,800, 0 cents in Colorado. In Chicago, buyers claimed to have seen Lexus GX 460S vehicles, known for their off-road capability and Toyota reliability, listed for under $10,000, 0 cents. Even the BMW 7 Series, long considered a flagship of German engineering, appeared in Enterprise's Illinois liquidation inventory for $14,900, 0 cents. What made these sales even more surreal was their condition. These weren't worn-out rentals with 70,000 miles and cigarette burns on the seats. They were near-new, meticulously maintained vehicles, still under manufacturer warranty, some even with unremoved plastic covers on their infotainment screens. Buyers who managed to secure one of these deals described the experience as surreal. In Austin, a tech consultant named Michael Torres told reporters he went to buy a used Honda Pilot for around $25,000, 0 cents, but left with a fully loaded Escalade for less than half that. "It didn't make sense," he said. "I asked 3 times if it was a mistake. They said, 'No sir, that's the price. If you want it, sign now.'" Within 24 hours, the car was gone, and listings for similar vehicles vanished from the company's website. Another buyer in Phoenix, a marketing director named Sarah Chen, recounted how she came in expecting to buy a Toyota Highlander, but drove out in a BMW X7 with massaging seats, panoramic roof, and a twin-turbo V8 engine for less than the price of a used Camry. Not all the deals were real bargains once examined closely. Some vehicles were missing second key fobs or had cosmetic wear, and a few came with rental use notations on their titles, which could slightly affect resale value. Still, these details didn't matter when buyers were saving $70,000 or more. What mattered was the sheer scale of the markdowns and the speed at which they occurred. Dealerships that once sold 15 cars a week were moving that many in a single day. Enterprise's online listings became the most closely watched car marketplace in the country. YouTubers and TikTok influencers began live streaming their searches for the $10,000, 0 cents Escalade, generating millions of views. Some independent car dealers even set up bots to monitor Enterprise's website and automatically purchase new listings under a certain price. A few buyers reportedly made 6-figure profits reselling Enterprise cars within days. It was the modern gold rush, only this time, the gold was rolling off the lot on 4 wheels. Economists tried to make sense of it. Traditional depreciation models couldn't explain 80% price drops on nearly new vehicles. Analysts speculated that Enterprise was dumping inventory to satisfy short-term liquidity covenants tied to its corporate loans. Others believed the company was preparing for bankruptcy protection and wanted to reduce the size of its fleet before restructuring. The truth was murky, but one thing was clear: the luxury segment was being gutted. By September, reports surfaced of buyers camping overnight outside Enterprise lots in California, hoping to get first pick when the gates opened. Employees described it as Black Friday every morning. One manager in Houston allegedly sold 52 vehicles in a single weekend, the equivalent of 3 months' normal business. And through it all, Enterprise's corporate office remained silent, issuing only brief statements about fleet realignment and strategic asset management. The examples of these impossible deals: Escalades for 12 grand, BMWs for 15, Teslas for under 9, spread across social media like wildfire, turning disbelief into obsession. Each story added fuel to the rumor that Enterprise wasn't just struggling, it was collapsing. And for ordinary buyers, it felt like witnessing history in motion. The implosion of a corporate empire, one discounted luxury car at a time. The chaos unfolding inside Enterprise wasn't just a story about cheap cars. It was the visible symptom of a much deeper collapse. To outsiders, the company's downfall seemed sudden, but those close to the situation knew the seeds had been planted years earlier. When the pandemic gutted business travel, Enterprise made an aggressive bet on recovery. Executives believed corporations would return to pre-2020 levels of travel by 2023, so they doubled down on premium and electric vehicles. Cadillacs, BMWs, Teslas, Mercedes, anticipating a surge in luxury rentals. They spent billions expanding airport fleets, upgrading facilities, and financing new inventory at historically low interest rates. But the recovery never came. Instead, remote work became permanent, companies cut travel budgets, and the global rental market shifted toward economy models and ride-sharing. Enterprise had built its empire on the wrong assumption. By 2024, their luxury and EV fleets had turned into stranded assets. Each of those cars represented a loan payment, an insurance premium, and maintenance costs that were bleeding the company dry. Internal projections, leaked to the financial ledger in May, revealed that Enterprise was losing nearly $75 million, 0 cents every month, maintaining vehicles it couldn't rent. Analysts pointed to a perfect storm: soaring interest rates, plummeting used car values, and a collapse in corporate rentals. To make matters worse, Enterprise's once optionable partnerships with airlines and travel agencies had eroded. Delta and United were now promoting rival brands or offering integrated Uber credits in their loyalty programs. Enterprise's dominance at airports, once its fortress, had turned into a liability. Employees started describing a culture of quiet panic. Fleet managers were ordered to reduce standing inventory at all costs. Regional directors competed to see who could liquidate the most vehicles the fastest. One former executive, speaking anonymously, said the atmosphere felt like watching a building burn down from the inside, and all we had were buckets of cash to throw at the flames. Franchise owners were instructed to avoid media contact and use the phrase fleet realignment instead of liquidation. Behind the corporate language was a simple truth. The company's cash flow had collapsed, and its lenders were circling. For buyers, however, this corporate implosion felt like a miracle. Across the country, ordinary people who never imagined owning a luxury car suddenly found themselves behind the wheel of one. Teachers, small business owners, even college students. People who had budgeted for a used Honda or a Ford Focus were driving home in late-model BMWs, Teslas, and Audis. The psychological shift was enormous. Social media filled with videos of buyers laughing in disbelief as they picked up cars they once only dreamed of affording. On TikTok, the hashtag Enterprise Liquidation exploded, drawing over 200 million views in a month. The narrative was simple and irresistible. The system had finally glitched in favor of the little guy. A mechanic in Denver named Robert Martinez had planned to buy a used F-150 for his contracting business, but ended up with a Mercedes GLS for $11,500, 0 cents. "It's ridiculous," he told the local news station. "This car used to belong to executives. Now I'm hauling tools in it." A real estate agent in Nashville, Jennifer Walsh, bought a 2023 Audi Q8 for $13,800, 0 cents. She admitted that part of her motivation was image. "Clients see the car and assume I'm doing incredibly well," she said. "They don't know I paid less than a used Camry." In dozens of cities, similar stories repeated. Working-class buyers using Enterprise's desperation to upgrade their lives, while online communities traded tips about which liquidation centers had the best inventory. The deals, however, came with hidden complexities. Enterprise's pricing model shifted daily, often fluctuating based on inventory and local demand. Cars that were listed for $10,000, 0 cents on Monday, might rise to $14,000, 0 cents by Wednesday, then vanish by Friday. Buyers learned to move fast and bring cash. Credit unions began offering specialized financing for Enterprise vehicles, using the low loan-to-value ratios as security. With cars selling for a fraction of their market price, lenders faced virtually no risk of default. Some banks even partnered directly with Enterprise to pre-approve buyers in bulk, accelerating transactions to keep the liquidation flowing. Still, the feeding frenzy came with warnings. consumer advocates urged buyers to stay cautious, reminding them that while many of these vehicles were under factory warranty, others carried rental use titles that could complicate resale. Insurance companies, too, adjusted their algorithms, raising premiums on certain high-performance models, despite their low purchase prices. A luxury car might be cheap to buy but expensive to maintain, and some buyers quickly realized that oil changes, tires, and parts for a BMW cost the same regardless of how little they'd paid for it. Yet even with these caveats, demand only grew. People were willing to overlook higher insurance and maintenance costs when the entry price was so impossibly low.